the richest man in history, and how his wealth shook the world. What if you were so rich that when you traveled, entire economies felt it? Today we're exploring the story of the richest man in recorded history, a ruler whose wealth was so massive it disrupted markets, attracted global attention, and reshaped the future of his empire. But this isn't just about gold. It's about visibility, power, and the hidden cost of success. By the end of this story, you'll understand how extreme wealth creates vulnerability, how attention becomes exposure, and why sometimes being the most powerful person in the room is more dangerous than it looks. And later in this story, the richest man alive will be forced to borrow money. Stay with me, because that moment explains everything. West Africa, 1312. A king ascends the throne of the Mali Empire. His name is Mansa Musa, and he controls something the world desperately wants. Gold, not treasure chest gold, not merchant-level gold. Historians estimate that Mali controlled an enormous portion of the world's known gold supply at the time, possibly close to half. To put that into modern perspective, if you combine the net worth of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates, you still wouldn't match him. Pause. Let that sink in. That's not wealth. That's economic gravity. And gravity changes everything around it. Under his rule, the Mali Empire flourishes. Trade routes stretch across the Sahara. Caravans carry salt, ivory, spices, and gold that shimmers like sunlight. The city of Timbuktu transforms from a trading post into one of the great intellectual centers of its time. Some accounts suggest as many as 25,000 students studied at the University of Sankore, rivaling major European universities of the era. Scholars, poets, scientists, mathematicians from across Africa, the Middle East, and beyond, all drawn to Timbuktu because Mansa Musa pays them to come. His libraries hold more manuscripts than anywhere on earth. His mosques are architectural masterpieces. Mansa Musa isn't just wealthy. He is legendary, and legends attract attention. In 1324, he begins the Hajj, the sacred pilgrimage to Mecca. For most rulers, it would be a spiritual journey. For Mansa Musa, it becomes a global announcement. He does not travel quietly. He travels with 60,000 attendants, thousands of soldiers, 500 senior attendants walking directly ahead of him, each carrying a golden staff, weighing 6 pounds of pure gold. Behind them, 100 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of gold dust. That is 18 tons of gold, moving across the Sahara. Imagine seeing that arrive at your city gates. Not a caravan, a moving river of gold. Everywhere he stops, Cairo, Medina, he gives gold away to the poor, to scholars, to officials, to anyone who asks. At first, people celebrate. A generous king from the south is making everyone rich. They take the gold, all of it, gratefully. Then something unexpected begins to happen. Prices rise. A week of food that once cost 1 gold coin now costs 2, then 3, then 5. The gold everyone believed would make them rich buys less than it did before. Because when you flood a market with too much of something, even gold, it stops being rare. And when gold stops being rare, it stops being valuable. Historians report that the economic disruption in Cairo lasted for years. Some accounts suggest more than a decade. And now we reach the moment I mentioned at the beginning. The richest man in the world tries to repair the damage by borrowing gold back, not because he was poor, not because his empire had fallen, but because he had unintentionally bent an entire regional economy out of shape. The wealthiest human being who ever lived had to borrow money to fix the damage his own generosity created. That's not just wealth. That's scale without strategy. But the deeper consequence wasn't inflation. It was visibility. Europe heard the stories of a king in Africa so wealthy, he handed out gold like water. In 1375, 50 years after his pilgrimage, a Catalan cartographer creates what becomes known as the Catalan Atlas. On it, West Africa is illustrated with one image above all others, a black king sitting on a golden throne, holding a golden orb, surrounded by gold, with a caption that translates to, "This black lord is called Musa Mali, Lord of the Guineas of Gold." European rulers study this map. Merchants study this map. Explorers study this map. And they begin to plan. Because once the world knows where wealth exists, it starts looking for ways to reach it. Mansa Musa dies in 1337. The empire remains powerful for a time, but over the next century, Mali's dominance slowly erodes. Succession struggles weaken central authority. Trade routes shift. Rival powers rise. The empire that once dominated West Africa gradually loses its position as the region's leading force. The gold that built one of the greatest empires in African history had drawn exactly the wrong kind of attention. Mansa Musa wasn't destroyed by greed. He wasn't destroyed by weakness. He wasn't destroyed by a more powerful enemy. He was challenged by scale. His wealth changed how the world saw him. And when the world sees you as powerful, it adjusts. His display of wealth did something irreversible. It made Mali visible in a world that was beginning to expand aggressively, and visibility invites competition. This lesson goes beyond empires, in business, in leadership, in life. When you grow too fast without protection, when you display success without strategy, when you attract attention without preparation, you create the same vulnerability Mansa Musa created. Because visibility is power, but it is also exposure. The startup founder who announces their idea publicly before they have the patent, before they have the funding, before they have protection, and watches someone else build it first. The entrepreneur who celebrates success too loudly before they have the infrastructure to defend their position and attracts competitors who are watching quietly. The leader who reveals their entire strategy before they have the power to execute it. Different century, different empire, same fatal mistake. Mansa Musa proved something extraordinary. You can be the richest man in history and still underestimate how the world will respond to your success. He gave gold to honor God. He gave gold to show the world the greatness of Mali. Both were genuine. Both were true. Both were costly. Because every time he opened his hand in Cairo, he was drawing a map to his empire. And maps get followed. Build quietly. Protect before you announce. And when you do show the world what you have, make sure you have the walls to defend it. Because sometimes being seen is more dangerous than being wealthy. Mansa Musa gave away enough gold to cause economic disruption that reportedly lasted for years. Some accounts suggest more than a decade, then had to borrow it back. The richest man who ever lived, humbled by his own generosity. If this story hit different, drop a comment below. Was Mansa Musa too generous? Or was the real mistake making Mali visible before it was protected? Let's talk about it. Like this video if the lesson landed. Share it with someone building something right now who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Buried Crowns. Because every week we dig up a ruler, an empire, or a power move that history tried to forget. And every single story has a lesson that still applies today. The next crown is already waiting. The crowns they buried, the stories they couldn't.